speaker today is Joe Aaron. Joe lives in Sonoma. The subject today is the economic and social impact technology is having on society. He began his professional career as an FBI agent, where he worked foreign counterintelligence, specializing in Middle Eastern affairs. From 1978 to 1981, he was the spokesman for the San Francisco office of the FBI. In 1982, he entered the securities business with Morgan Stanley, where he specialized in traditional money management. In 1998, he founded Wood, Hat, and Silver, LLC. I have no idea what that means. And a SEC secured investment advisor, where he ran a hedge fund until 2008. Finding he had too much time on his hands, Mr. Aaron turned his attention to the future. His focus is on demographics, technology, and the impact on our economy. Please welcome Joe Aaron.
So, wow, nice, this works. So I know what you're all wondering. What the heck is an economic futurist? Well, I'll tell you what a futurist is. A futurist identifies trends in society. Now, trends have been around quite a long time. You can go all the way back to the turn of the last century when agriculture provided 46% of our jobs. Today, they only have 2% of our jobs. You could look at Steve Jobs introducing the iPhone 10 years ago when we had 100 million cell phones. Today, it's 6 billion. You could look at the trend that in 1990, we started sequencing the human genome. 13 years to do the first one. It only cost $2.7 billion. But the trend was our friend. It went down and down, 50 million, 25 million. And this year, it's going to cost you less than $200 to sequence your own personal genome. And what that means is we can design individual drugs for your individual body and human makeup, which will revolutionize the way we treat medicine going forward. So a futurist are a dime a dozen. Now, we economic futurists, we're the real deal. And we deal with the impact these trends will have upon society, upon you as an individual, and upon your business. So there's only, I'm going to cover two areas today. One is demographics and the other is the autonomous vehicle. And for men here, the good news is you only need to know one number, and that is 2.1. 2.1 is the number of children each woman needs to have in a country for it to maintain its population. Here in the United States, our birth rate's 1.9. We have a population of 30 million people. With that birth rate and immigration of about 500,000 people, our economy is in pretty good shape because we'll maintain our population. But 7 countries in the Western world have literally stopped breeding. And you can see they start with the Catholic countries, Italy, Spain, and Portugal at 1.4, 1.3, and 1.2. Germany, Austria, and Japan come in at 1.4, and Switzerland at 1.5. They say, how does that work out for us? Well, with a birth rate of 1.4, after 20 years, you lose 1/3 of your workforce. 1/3. They age out of the workforce. So these 7 countries that I mentioned, in 20 years, if this trend continues, this trend is definitely not our friend. They will have more people paying into, let me restate that, they will have more people drawing out of Medicare and Social Security, or whatever their equivalents are, than they will have paying into them. And you don't have to be an economist to understand that's not sustainable. Now these countries are what we call, or what demographers call, aging societies. An aging society is like more walkers than baby strokers. More people over 65 than under 15. And Germany and Japan, they are leading the charge. They have been under 2.1 since 1969 for Germany and 1971 for Japan. And they have diametrically opposed views on how to solve this problem of a declining population. And it's immigration. Germany embraces immigration. They have 82 million people, and they allow about 1 million immigrants every year. Now in the United States, I told you, we allow 500,000 in. Well, that's still not good enough because Germany needs 1.5 to maintain their population. They have about 200,000 Germans a year that die more than are reborn. So Japan, now they're just the opposite. They reject immigration outright. The nation, and once again this is a demographic term, it's not my own, but the demographers refer to it as purity. The country is 97.5% pure, 98.5% pure. So that means a few Japanese left the country, married somebody, brought them back. Now they don't make them citizens. That's how bad it is. So their population of 127 million is aging. And in 1960, 6% were over 65 years old. Here in the United States, 1 out of every 15 of us is over 65 years old. And that's about the number. But the government of Japan estimates that by 2060, the population will have fallen to 87 million. Now, the news gets worse if you're Japanese. About 43 million of the 87 will be over 65 years old. See if I can, there we go. Last year, Japan hit upon 2 milestones. They missed them. They'd worked them for years, and the Japanese mothers have delivered 1 million babies each year since 1899. They missed it last year. The population dropped from 128 million to 127 million. They shut down over 300 schools. This country is shutting down. It is a dying nation. They literally sell more Depends than they do baby diapers. So to re-emphasize this again, birth rate of 1.4, in 20 years you lose 30% of your workforce. They'll go from 65 million workers to 44. Now, they have about $1 trillion of our debt because of trade. They're going to have to use it. They're going to have to spend it. We only have 20 trillion in debt. I know that's figuratively speaking, but if somebody owns 5% of your debt and they start selling it, it puts upward pressure on interest rates. Japan is our 5th largest trading partner. If half the population is over 65, it's hard to generate much manufacturing and much trade. Now, there's only 2 ways to grow an economy. There are only 2 ways. One is to increase the population. When I was born, the population of the United States was 150 million. And the population has grown. We've had immigration, right? That's worked well for us. The other way is productivity growth. And productivity growth is the reason you're richer than your parents. We became more productive in our output for each hour worked. That's productivity growth. Those are the only 2 ways. Now, we could all benefit or mimic Australia. They're the lesson for Japan. They have a population of 250 million. Each year, 1% immigrates, 250,000. 1 in 4 Aussies. 1 in 4 of them are immigrants in their own country. Now, Japan, you have a declining workforce. You have an aging society. They can't seem to escape a recession. They've had 5 in the last 7 years. Compared to the United States, we've had 7 since 1970. Now, a recession is back-to-back or consecutive quarters of economic contraction. Now, pardon me, illegal immigration is a hot button in this country right now. The 7 countries I mentioned They're not worried about illegal immigration. They're going to be paying immigrants to come to those countries by 2020. It will cease to be a problem throughout the world. It's already no longer a problem here in the United States. We got more people leaving than we do coming illegally. So, workers per beneficiary. The reason you need your population to grow is to look after World War II. We had 40 people paying into Social Security for every one taking out. Today it's 3.1, and in 2030 it's 2 point. It'll be 2 to 1. Now that trend is not our friend. The fact is capitalism has never flourished except when accompanied by population growth. So the U.S. needs immigration if we're going to survive as the world's leading economic producer. Again, our birth rate's 1.9 and our productivity growth an anemic 1%. But enough of the bad news. Let's go to some good news and talk about the autonomous car. And I know all you futurists out there, since I've given you the trade secret, are saying, well, there's an elephant in the room. Where is the trend? We have no autonomous cars. This has occurred to me, but we have had a trend in the autonomous vehicle's older, beautiful sister, the electric car. And here's that trend. If you'll look at those numbers, the math wizards here, me being one of them, will tell you that's 43% annual growth. That's exponential growth. That's society changing when it's exponential as opposed to linear growth. You know, exponential growth, if I take 30 steps over there to the door, I've gone 90 feet. If I take 30 steps exponentially, I can go around the world 12 and a half times. I got this beautiful little, well, 13-year-olds now across the street from me, and her brother's 15. He stopped talking to me, his voice has changed. She still loves me. And when she was a little girl and losing her first baby tooth, she brought it over to show it to me. And so, this is a real smart girl. I said, I tell you what, how much is the tooth fairy giving you? She said, oh, I don't know. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal. I'll give you $1 for that. Or I'll give you a penny for every one of the teeth. And the next year I'll give you 2 pennies. And the next year I'll give you 4. I'll give you 8. I'll give you 16. I'll give you 32. She took the $1. I've reminded her every year since. That would have been $2,000 and something dollars because she has 20 baby teeth. That was an aha moment for her. She's a math whiz. I'm sure she's going to go places if her brother ever speaks to me again. So Tesla is the trend in electric cars. And the stock market certainly thinks so. They think that Tesla as a company, which loses money every quarter, is worth more than Ford Motor Company. And Ford Motor Company produces 2.5 million cars per year. Now why is that? Isn't that absolutely ridiculous? It's because it's the future. Motor Trend magazine thinks so much of Tesla, they named it the car of the year. Now the key word missing there is they didn't say electric car of the year, they said car of the year. And Consumer Reports follows that up and says Tesla is the best car ever made. Not 100 on the 100 scale, but a 103 on the 100 scale. By the way, they've got orders for 400,000 Model 3 cars. And I've got news for the great Elon Musk. He's not going to make it. And the news announced it this week that he's not on anywhere near his target of 400,000 cars this year in the next 12 months. And there's 2 reasons he won't do that. One is he only has this one plant down in Fremont. It's working as hard as it can, but he needs 4 of them. And he only has 1 gigafactory over in Reno. It's the largest building in the world you're looking at with the solar panels. It's identifiable from out of state. It's 15 million square feet. He can't do it with 1 of those. He's already given orders to double it. He needs 4 of them. That's the problem with the electric car. Now China's leading the way. They sell twice as many cars as we do, electric cars. They're the largest car market in the world, but they have 9 gigafactories either under construction or on the books. Now the trend continues, and it's the cost of the batteries. The cost of the batteries in the Model 3, which costs $35,000, is about 40%, so that's $14,000. I think I did that math right. $14,000. The cost of batteries are dropping exponentially. That goes a little bit slower when it's going down, but they're dropping 8 to 12% a year. So in 5 years, that price just dropped 50%. And so that Tesla, instead of $35,000, is $28,000. I don't think the internal combustion engine is moving up in price at that rate. Now, gas versus electricity, when we go fill up our tank, it costs us about $50. I plug in my 3EI, the little BMW, that used to be my car until my wife just took it. And it costs about $7.50 to charge that. Now, if you do that math, that car saves me $2,000 a year on gas. Poor people can do that math. So, maintenance, my little BMW has 20 moving parts. Your stink pot that you're driving has 2,000. What could possibly go wrong with your car? And we know it costs a lot of money, and if you're poor, you know real well what how much you spend on maintenance. So that's what's going to give birth and longevity and permanency to the electric car. So along comes the autonomous vehicle, probably in 2020, and the cost per mile will go down. Now, it'll probably save every family, everybody in this room, about $5,600 a year after tax. Once again, if your average income, $58,000, $5,600 after tax is a lot of dough. And you can't save it because you don't make enough to live. You put it immediately back into the economy. And that's going to boost the economy by about $1 trillion, which is remarkable. So here's an example out of Montreal, the only one I've been able to find. It really brings home the cost of a taxi when you got a human driving it. Uber loses money on every ride. They're losing $2 billion a year. Their literal survival depends upon the quick emergence of the autonomous car. They only have about 3 years of cash flow left. But you can see there's nothing left with the autonomous car to run except a little bit of energy cost, thank you, a little bit of energy cost and the cost of the vehicle. So let's consider a few factors here. Your car sits on its lazy butt 95% of the time, right? You drive to and from work, you make a couple of trips to the market, on the weekend you run a couple of errands. It sits on its lazy butt. And there's 250 million of them. That's the reason it's so crowded out there. That's one for every man, woman, and child that's of driving age. Well, the number of cars with the autonomous vehicle is going to drop dramatically over the next 15, 20 years, probably by 50%. There'll be 100 million internal combustion engines abandoned. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, because I'm going to save everybody in this room about $5,000. I would expect a little kinder reaction than that. I saved you back. Where's the love? So, there we go. By 2030, the builders of new homes, there won't be any garages. That'll be wasted space, right? And driver's license, you won't need one. Somebody got a new baby in here, that child will never drive a car. I want to restate that. They won't be allowed to drive a car because we kill tens of thousands, 40,000 people a year on the roads. We're a danger to one another. The autonomous car is driving millions of miles. us, and it's only killed one person, and it's questionable whose fault it was. So we'll get rid of the DMV as well. That's some good. There's some other jobs. My feelings are bruised after that 5,000. It's too late. So with the autonomous car, nobody's going to have a wreck. They've driven these cars tens of millions of miles. So what happens to that Geico gecko? Yeah. That boy's out of business. So is Allstate. So is Progressive. They're publicly traded companies. They'll be the first to go. And then, of course, there's the bus drivers, there's the taxi drivers, and there's the long-haul truck drivers. And among the three, it's a little over 3 million jobs. Now, that's a lot of jobs. Now, they're not going to all disappear in a year. It's going to be over 10 and 15 years. We have 155 million jobs in the United States today. It's an all-time high. Our unemployment is right where it needs to be. And we gain 2,000 jobs a month. We lose 2,000 jobs every month. They open a pizza parlor in Poughkeepsie and one closes here in Petaluma. Just the way it works. So if you lose 3 million jobs over a, let's say, a 15-year period, that's 2%. That's a sign of a resilient, strong economy. It only matters if you're a long-haul truck driver or a taxi driver. So the people that make those 2,000 parts, there's going to be some shrinkage there. Avis can try as hard as it wants. Avis and Hertz, they're out of business. I've changed my mind on that. I need to change that slide. Somebody's got to, I call it puke-proof, the autonomous car, because that sucker's going to be working from 6 a.m. in the morning to midnight. It's going to be taking home your nephew who behaved badly at the bar there and left something in the car. They know how to clean up an automobile, so they'll partner. They'll partner with one of the fleet operators. And here are the fleet operators. If you think about it, Ford and General Motors, Mercedes, they don't need Uber. They don't need Lyft. The only thing it tells them is how many people get off the ferry in Larkspur at such and such a time, so how many cars needs to be there. There's some value to it, but they make, the manufacturer makes like 6 or 8% on a car. That's the margin, profit margin. When you're a fleet operator, it's about 20%. So nobody in this room is going to buy an autonomous car. You wouldn't buy a taxi. It has no driving steering wheel. It has no pedals. It's uncomfortable. But all the autonomous vehicles, every one of them will be electric. And that will spell the death of the internal combustion engine. And this is where I save you that money, because slowly but surely, the buyers of your new car that you have for 10 years is going to disappear, because it's going to be the working poor. They're going to use that autonomous car, and they can do the math in their head. If they save $2,000 a year or $5,600, $2,000 a year on gas, they can certainly do the math of what it costs with an autonomous car to pick them up and take them to work instead of paying for the maintenance. And slowly but surely, nobody's going to want to buy your car. So the solution is, in the next 5 years, if you have to get a new car, you want to do one thing. Not buy it, lease it. I see some nodding heads. Here's the impact. I'm running out of time here. Got 2 more slides. The impact on the economy is a barrel of oil generates 50% for transportation. Diesel and jets, they use 25%. The stink pots use another 25%. By 2030, 90% of the cars produced will be electric. So we've replaced a generation of cars, and so nobody wants your stink pot. So the demand for oil does what? It goes down by 5, 10, 20%. This is going to be happening worldwide. Now, there's the cost of oil when OPEC organized and said, we're going to cut back on production. We do 96 million barrels worldwide a day. The United States does 10 million barrels a day. When they cut back 2 million barrels, the cost went from $140 a barrel down to 40. So it's never going again above 60. And the reason is we've got this new massively disruptive technology called fracking. God, I love saying that word. Sounds like I'm talking dirty, you know, getting away with it. So it will never go above 60. And these four countries, they subsidize their government with oil revenue. Now we know that the civil unrest we're seeing in Venezuela, it's hard to do a revolution these days, since we proved that when Bush 41 invaded Iraq and Saddam Hussein was able to survive. It's hard to have a revolution, but they're going to be facing one because they will not be able to meet their expenses. So the good news is the average family saves $5,600. Our productivity growth goes up. We add $2 trillion to our GDP, and it'll be a lifeline, the AV will be, to our elderly and our poor. So what's left to invent? It can make us more productive in our day, because we're not going to increase the population that much. Beam me up, Scotty. Beam me up. I could give this speech in San Francisco and Eureka and be back in Sonoma in time for a glass of wine. And so my conclusion about the future is, if man can conceive it, a woman can make it happen. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll stay after, because I don't...
You ask me questions, yeah. Who's got a question?
Yes, sir.
My question has to do is if you have immigration as a solution for living in a country, those people are leaving the other country. What happens to them?
They do not have a birth rate below 2.1.
I know people in my family stopped at 2 children because they had the statistics that 1 out of every 3 children born in the world is Chinese.
China is below 2.1. It's a closed country. That's all I'll say. I don't come into where you work and turn off your Slurpee machine, do I? I'm working here. That's funny. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The big problem with the electric car at this moment in time is the infrastructure. You talked about that briefly.
Yeah, where are you going to charge a car and how long is it going to take you to do it? One thing I can guarantee about the cost of batteries is they're going to go down. We know that. It's going to take less time to charge it also. And when they do charge it, it's going to go for more miles than it did. Within 4 years, there will not be any plug-ins, I predict. It'll all be like Wi-Fi. It'll come inductive from beneath the road, because the fleet operators of the autonomous cars will make sure they put that strip down the middle of each street. So you won't be able to go to Cleveland on Route 80, or if Route 80 takes you there. You won't be able to do that. We're not going to get rid of the 300 miles. It might go to 400. So what? You got to stop. Can you recharge it in 15 minutes? I submit in 5 years or a little more, you will be able to. Yes, sir.
At what point will we no longer be allowed to drive the steam pots?
Well, it'll drop. I hate it when I get a question I don't know the answer to. I haven't given that the thought it needs to give an authoritative answer, but we know that lots of countries are saying, India, China, France, Great Britain, they're saying 2040, etc. They're putting these lines in the sand. We won't be far behind, but we will we will embrace the electric. And somebody's, if you turn on a dirt road out here in Petaluma, your autonomous car is not going to go there. You're not going to be able to turn. That gets outside. You'd need level 5. There's 5 levels of autonomous vehicles, and we'll have level 4. There'll be no need for level 5. The stink pot will go on that dirt road. Yes, sir?
Do you think that'll happen, that just sort of wear it down? There's no law against driving a 32 Model A, but most people don't do it. Now, instead of being made illegal, maybe people just start giving it up.
They'll give it up because they just won't want to spend the money, and they'll find somebody that'll come and haul away their stink pot that was worth $5,000 a day for $100. Save y'all this money, give it to Rotary. That's it, Mr. President. Thank you.